If Jake Paul can walk into a fight and guarantee to his friends and family, who will bet hundreds of thousands of dollars on his words, that he is going to win in the first round, that is not the fight Jake Paul needs. All right, Evan, are you there? Let's talk about this really quick. Let's talk about this really quick. So first and foremost, I want to say this. I had a prediction about this fight going in last night. I'm gonna play that really quick.
Who do you think is gonna win tonight?
Well, I have money on Jake Paul, and so I really do hope it's Jake Paul. I know there's a lot of people out there who would like to see it go the other way, but those people can suck a dick because we really need Jake Paul to pull it off. I have pretty much my entire life savings, $52 on the fight, and so I'm really hoping it's Jake Paul. Second round knockout.
Second round knockout. You hear that, Evan? Second round knockout.
No, I'm gonna hear that.
Called it out.
Wait, you called it?
I called it. Second round knockout. Now did I bet second round knockout? I did not. Okay, so I did bet on the fight. I bet Jake Paul to win, which he did in stunning fashion. Okay, I think everybody in this chat would agree that Jake Paul's knockout on Nate Robinson last night was the most violent thing we have seen in YouTube boxing so far. An absolutely violent knockout from Jake Paul. Nate Robinson being memed by everyone today for this knockout. Just an absolute disaster for Nate Robinson and people from the African American community saying that Nate Robinson has been disowned, that Jake Paul will be invited to the block parties from now on and the picnics. It is not good out there for Nate Robinson right now.
Problem child.
The problem child showed up and he gave Nate Robinson a real
doinkered on his head.
Doinkered. He said he was gonna bounce him off the ring like a basketball, I believe is what he said on Impulsive, and he did that. It was very bad for Nate Robinson. Okay, so we've established that Jake Paul continues to show up for his fights. He trains extremely hard, puts in the work necessary to beat up his opponents. He absolutely crushed Nate Robinson. I think he shut up a lot of people. He made it clear that he can fight. He can fight, and maybe that he's the better fighter out of the two Paul brothers. Wow. Now we'll talk about that more. We'll talk about that more in a second.
Wow.
Now we all know what happened last night. We saw what happened. We saw what happened with him, with Nate Robinson. We saw what happened with Anderson Gibb, and of course we saw what happened with Deji. Okay, and so we know what Jake Paul is capable of. The question now becomes, what is next for Jake Paul? What is the next step? Now, a lot of people out there want to see Jake fight KSI. The UK wants to see it. We want to see it. I think the entire world wants to see KSI versus Jake Paul. And I think KSI wants to see KSI versus Jake Paul, as does Jake. I think they both want it very badly. What I know / think I know that a lot of people in the general public don't know is that fight comes down to money. KSI and Logan Paul received a massive bag off of Logan Paul KSI fight 1 and 2. I'm not going to disclose what that bag looked like, but it was large, okay? Now, I'm going to say something that may upset some people here. Jake Paul, while he may be potentially the better fighter of the two Paul brothers, does not command the audience or cultural relevance that his older brother does. He does not move the needle in the same way that Logan Paul does. A Logan Paul fight makes global headlines. And so what is happening, I believe, is that the bag that KSI is demanding from Jake Paul is not being received well by the people putting on the fight. And so KSI is used to getting a pretty large sum of money for this fight, and I don't know that he would get that from a KSI versus Jake Paul fight. Now here's where, go ahead.
That is, with as many people, I mean, I might get hate for saying this too, but I mean, Jake Paul being like more of a like the problem child. A lot of people don't like Jake Paul.
Correct.
A lot of people hate Jake Paul and would like to see Jake Paul getting knocked out. So you don't think that would help bring in the views?
I do, and Jake has talked about this a lot before, a lot in the past, about how people not liking him drives viewership, and it actually does. That's very true. Mm-hmm. I think, but I still do not believe that from a household and national attention standpoint, a Jake Paul fight brings the audience that a Logan Paul fight brings. It's just the fact of the matter, which is evidenced by what we think we're going to see in 2021, a Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather fight in early 2021, because of Logan's ability to move the fucking needle and create trending topics and just get people to listen. Now, am I saying that? No, hold on a second. Now, am I saying that Jake cannot do that? Absolutely not. But what I am saying is where I think Jake can fill in that gap that his brother covers through entertainment and cultural relevance value is his actual prowess for the sport of boxing. Jake is a fighter. I don't think a lot of people out there still will give him the credit that he deserves for the ability he has in the sport. And what I'm going to say next is going to upset Jake, and is probably going to upset some other people as well. Jake's next fight cannot be against a scrub. Jake's next fight cannot be against a scrub. Hold on, let me.
I don't think you upset anyone.
Okay, let me explain this. Fight number 1, Deji. Deji, an inexperienced, as KSI would call the
probably best one.
Probably the best one, but as KSI would say, the B side. The B side. KSI being the A side, Deji being the B side to the UK boxing scene. Fight number 2, Anderson Gibb. A completely inexperienced fighter, clearly had no idea what he was doing in the ring besides squatting. It looked like he was doing squatting exercises in the gym as opposed to fighting Jake Paul. And then fight number 3, of course, against a washed up, retired NBA basketball player with 3 months of training. Okay, and listen, I want to make this very clear. I am not taking anything from Jake Paul here. I'm not discrediting him. I'm not discounting his victory. He absolutely pulverized all 3 of those fighters. Jake is an incredible YouTube boxer. Now, this is where things get tricky. Does Jake want to continue being a YouTube boxer, or does he want to be looked at as an actual fighter in the arena? An actual fighter who could call out someone like Conor McGregor, which is what he did, okay? Now, in order to do that, Jake needs a real fight. A real fight. Not Austin McBroom. I believe that Jake fighting Austin McBroom will be a massive mistake for Jake Paul. That is not a fight. That is not the fight that Jake Paul needs to get his credibility to a place where he can fight people like Conor McGregor. So what I want to see, and what I think the best thing Jake Paul can do moving forward, is look for a fight that he cannot go into and guarantee a first-round victory. If Jake Paul can walk into a fight and guarantee to his friends and family, who will bet hundreds of thousands of dollars on his words, that he is going to win in the first round, that is not the fight Jake Paul needs. He needs a fight that he shows up to and that is going to go 3, 4, 5 rounds, 6 rounds, okay? So what I believe Jake Paul needs is a fight against either KSI or Dylan Dennis. One of those 2 people. That is the fight Jake needs. He does not need to fight an unexperienced Austin McBroom. He also does not need to fight the next person that calls him out. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, he fought Nate Robinson because Nate Robinson called him out. People call me out all day. People call me out all day, and if you're a boxer, people are going to call you out every time they win a fight for clout, especially when you're a boxer named Jake or Logan Paul. That does not.
CVS analogy.
Yes, my C. You know, if I show up to CVS and I'm too rude to someone, for example, and they call me a schmuck, I'm not going to sign a contract to fight them in the fucking octagon. Okay? What I'm saying is you just because someone calls you out in life does not mean that is the fight that you need to take. That is not how things work. So the next Jake Paul fight needs to be Jake needs to take his time and strategically analyze who his next opponent is going to be, and it needs to be someone that can give him the credibility he so seeks. And that is what he is after. Now, his brother, Logan, my best friend, can fall ass first into any fight he wants because he is the motherfucking A-side, as KSI calls it. He moves the needle. When he does something, the world listens. And I'm not saying that Jake is not also a needle mover in his own right, but I personally, and call me biased, call it what you want, do not believe that Logan has that Jake has the needle moving capability that his brother has. But as I said earlier, he has the skill, and so if he can fill that gap that exists between his ability to drive 1 million pay-per-view buys and his ability to drive credibility in the sport, I think he would get the respect he needs from both ESPN, the boxing community, so on and so forth. So what Jake needs next for his path is a real fighter. So that's kind of where I stand. I'd love to know from the chat who they want to see Jake Paul fight next. Would they rather see KSI or would they rather see Dylan Dennis?
I'm interested to see to hear what Mamba thinks.
Yeah, yep, Evan, sorry. I had that rant kind of planned out.
I don't know. I guess Dylan Dennis.
No, on the two.
Yeah.
Dylan Dennis, yep, go ahead.
KSI would be a good fighter, but Dylan Dennis talks a lot of shit.
He does. And
Jake likes people who talk a lot of shit. Pretty sure that guy talks more shit than out of anyone.
Dylan Dennis?
Yeah.
Constant.
Yeah.
Now,
I don't know which one's ducking, but
now it comes down to what he's after, too. And there's a lot of people in the chat saying Ryan Garcia. Guys, that fight will never happen. Never happen. Ryan Garcia is a professional boxer on the not only his ability to destroy Jake. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about he is a professional boxer on the brink of actual mainstream combat sports success. Now the reason you're seeing other people from the combat sports arena fight people like Jake Paul or Logan Paul is because they're over the hump. They're either retired, past the prime, and see a quick bag in it. Ryan Garcia is next up. Ryan Garcia boxes for a living. That is his life. That is his holy grail. That is what he'll be remembered for. He's not going to take a Jake Paul fight. That's not even up for fucking discussion. It will never happen. It will never happen. And also, ironically, there's a lot of people out there who say Ryan Garcia has the same issue that Jake has, which is he needs to go and prove himself in a fight that isn't Ryan Garcia favored from the start as well. And so a lot of people have called out Ryan Garcia and said that he's taken soft fights, which I guess for a professional long-term boxer isn't as problematic. But I thoroughly believe that the right step for Jake coming up next is Jake versus an actual combat sports fighter or someone with enough experience to get in the ring and not have Jake be able to say, yo, this is a first-round knockout and mean it. He's saying, yo, this is a first or a second round knockout every time he walks into the ring, and he really means it, and it is.
But it's against opponents who are like swinging at him like Beetlejuice.
Bro, they're not actually. Listen, I said this before. I do not want to discount this kid's fighting ability. He's a great fighter. He's a mean motherfucker. He shows up. He works hard. He's the real deal. But you're putting him in the ring against inexperienced scrubs for the most part.
Going back to KSI, you said he wouldn't take it because it's underpaid or it's not a Logan Paul fight. what would KSI like the next fight would be then? Like why wouldn't it be Jake Paul?
I think
KSI's 1-0. You already beat the older brother. Why not take on Jake Paul?
I agree.
And it's a younger brother who's also undefeated. And someone comes out with a loss.
I agree with you, and I think what will happen here is I think KSI will fold under the not fold, but he will succumb to the pressure that is the internet. And even though he feels that he deserves more money than he might get from a Jake Paul fight, I think he will take the fight because so many people want to see it happen. Everybody wants to see Jake Paul KSI. Everybody wants to see that. There's not a person out there that doesn't want to see that fight. We all want to see that. The UK wants to see KSI pulverize Jake Paul. The America wants to see Jake Paul vengeance for the last 2 fights. That is the fight that needs to happen. And
I'm curious. So if Dylan Dennis ends up accepting this fight and Jake ends up winning, does Jake even need KSI at that point?
I don't believe so.
KSI to accept beforehand?
No, I don't believe so. I think a Jake Paul victory over Dylan Dennis it serves Jake the credibility that he needs, and he can then go on to then literally call out people like Conor McGregor, and people would listen because he beat someone, by the way, in Conor's fucking camp, okay, who has actual fighting experience. Now, of course, Dylan Dennis, not known for being a striker, a great MMA combat sports fighter, but not, a boxer by any means. And so still, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people out there who would say that Jake Paul would have the advantage once again over Dylan Dennis, but it's close enough to being a real fight. It's more real than a whatever it is, 8-inch smaller, 30-pound lighter, retired NBA basketball player who clearly had no fucking clue what he was doing in the ring. Also, once again, Anderson Gibb, no offense to Anderson Gibb, but looked like he wanted to get his glutes stronger in that fight, and he wasn't interested in actually fighting. He was doing a Bradley Martin-style leg workout during the entire first round of that fight. I guess, literally ducking the fight in more ways than one. And then, of course, Deji, who I think, out of the 3 of them, put on the best fight against Jake Paul. Deji proved himself quite a bit in that fight against Jake Paul that he could actually fight. Deji can fight. There's no question about that. And so, once again, I think Jake needs to strategically think about his next fight, even if it comes at the risk of losing a little bit of money or a little bit of entertainment value. I think there's a lot of people out there who want to see Jake Paul fight a fighter. There's a lot of people out there who want to see Jake Paul fight someone who can actually keep up, bring it to round 3, bring it to round 4, bring it to round 6, and make it a fight that people want to watch. And by the way, let me I want to state this 10 more times. I'm not a boxing expert by any means or a fighting expert. This is, I love the sport. I think it's fun to watch, but I don't know shit about the sport. I think the stuff that I'm saying today are the opinions of anyone who has half a fucking brain when it comes to sports or credibility or the path that is becoming a credible fighter, right? And so this is common sense stuff, guys. I'm not claiming to be an expert. And once again, also want to say none of this should distract from the fact that Jake Paul is a fighter. Jake Paul is a fighter. He showed up. He put a fucking whooping on Nate Robinson. And, discount Nate Robinson as much as you want, but Jake Paul's got a great fucking strike and is the real deal. I just think he needs to show up. He needs a real fight now.
Agreed.
Logan posted a story last night that his fight against Nate Robinson solidified his legacy. That this fight last night solidified Jake's legacy.
In what way? How so?
I don't know. And that's what I'm saying. And I disagree with that. I disagree with that wholly. And I think
is it just because he knocked him out and the way he got?
Yeah, I guess the ferociousness of the knockout, but I think that once again, I think that the fight that solidifies Jake's legacy will be the next fight when he knocks out a real fighter.
Yeah.
That's it.
If he knocks out Dylan Dennis, bro, that's lit.
That's what I'm saying.
Was Deji?
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Why does Jake keep fighting short dudes?
Bro.
If Jake knocks out Dylan Dennis, that's like a straight line to Conor McGregor, and I don't think that there would be really a need for KSI at that point. Like if
KSI is not a fighter, bro.
Whoa! Hold on a second. Who is
Jake
that?
would punish.
Who is that?
It's Landon.
KSI is a trained. I believe that KSI is a trained fighter.
I've fought longer than KSI.
Okay, stop. Let me explain this. Let me explain this. KSI has now KSI as a traditionally trained boxer, I think if you put KSI against someone with true boxing experience, he would get eaten alive. I really do. But what KSI has that I guess Jake is starting to show is KSI's a dog. KSI is
like a slouch at all. I'm just saying he's not Dylan Dennis.
He's not Dylan Dennis, but he has a lot of heart, and he's a dog, and he shows up and he doesn't fuck. When he goes down, he gets back up and he comes out swinging hard. Now I think with the right counter striker against him, he would be in trouble. But I think it would be we would be remiss to call him or we would be failing ourselves to call him not a fighter. I think KSI is a fighter, but I think
I meant trained fighter. That's what I meant.
Well, he's trained as well, but he's just not. He doesn't box very conventionally. He's a street fighter, which was what Nate tried to do last night, and obviously failed at. But there's other people who have a record of street fighting in boxing, and so
they went for the two leg. You could see it in the very first encounter. He goes for a 2-leg takedown, and then backs off.
Right. Nate had no idea what he's doing. I think KSI has found out very much how to make street fighting work in the ring. He's just not super conventional or polished. And who's to say which one works? We've seen it clearly work against the height and weight advantage of Logan Paul and classically trained Logan Paul. And by the way, in my
opinion, Logan won that.
That's fine, and I think there's other people out there who would say that as well. I'm not here to say whether won or lost, but clearly Logan brings a very conventional boxing style to the fight. KSI's a dog that likes those big overhand rights and that more street fighting ability. And so whether you want to say KSI actually won or lost the second fight, and they obviously tied in the first one. KSI clearly has a defined style when it comes to that street fighting skill, and so you can't count KSI out. But I think that a KSI fight for Jake Paul and a Dylan Dennis fight for Jake Paul bring two very different rewards for Jake Paul moving forward. I think a KSI fight is a fight for clout, a fight for YouTube legacy. And I think a fight versus Dylan Dennis is a fight for credibility in the technical boxing space. And I personally believe that the Dylan Dennis fight is more valuable for Jake moving forward as he tries to build this credibility as an actual fighter. If that makes sense.
I fully agree.
Which one do I want to see more? KSI. I think the whole world wants to see KSI Jake Paul, and of course that's what I want to see.
Really?
Yes.
I want to see the Dennis fight, bro.
What category would you put his boxing in?
I'd rather see Dennis.
You put Ryan
I think
Garcia
Jake's winning against KSI without it's gonna definitely be harder than the Nate fight, but I want to see Dennis because I want to see him actually go against someone who's a fighter, so that way people can't say, oh, he's just fighting people that aren't fighters.
See, people be annoyed that it's another YouTube fight.
Yeah, I agree. I'd love to start to see the crossover from. Okay, so here's my question, and just hear me out. Last night after the fight, I'll have civil discourse about the fight and about my thoughts on it and stuff like that. But last night, right after the fight, there were videos that came out from Chris Brown, laughing at the screen, and other people kind of dissing on the knockout, like, yo, you got knocked out by a YouTuber. I believe that until we start to see real crossover between YouTube boxing and boxing, that YouTube boxing will always be looked at as a bit of a sideshow, as a bit of as entertainment, and for as long as that happens, you'll see people who have true boxing experience and love for the sport of boxing continue to talk down on YouTube boxing, laugh at YouTube boxing, make YouTube boxing look like it's some sort of joke, which it's not. These people actually train very hard, have a ton of skill, but I would love to see some sort of crossover between the two, or at the very least, the people at the top of the YouTube boxing pedestal start to box a certain pedigree of opponent. I think that when Jake boxes against people who clearly do not have the experience to be in the fucking ring, that he is actually doing a disservice to his, Logan's, and KSI's future in the program. When you walk into a ring and you fight someone that was trained to fight, it looks like at a block party or some sort of backyard brawling match, and can't make it through round one without getting knocked down twice, that diminishes Jake's capabilities as a real fighter and diminishes YouTube boxing as a sport. My personal belief. Now, when you look at Logan Paul, KSI, and two people who trained for years to be in that ring together and put on a true boxing match that goes the distance, that is very different. That's a very different situation.
I think like the term YouTube boxer like just needs to be removed from people that are actually boxers. Like, I wouldn't say at this point Jake to me like wouldn't be a YouTube boxer because he's actually he wants to be a boxer. So like, I think as he fights more actual fighters, then like maybe people will consider him a boxer instead of like, oh, a YouTube boxer.
Well, that's what I'm getting at, and I already know.
I think that there's a category.
Like, that's like saying Drake is like a actor rapper. Like, no, he's just a rapper now.
Well, listen.
And
he's an actor. Like, I don't know. I think people just box people in too heavily into like what they're known for, like, and don't give them credit in other lanes that they try to venture into.
Listen, I want to make it clear one last time on this topic, because there's already people, stupid fucking people, will see this as some sort of attempt to discount Jake Paul's victory or say he doesn't deserve credibility. I've said it already on this stream, and I'll say it 100 more times. Jake Paul is a great fucking fighter, put on an absolutely great show, deserves all of the applause, deserves all of the respect for his fight and the way that he absolutely demolished an athlete in the ring. Okay? That is, I am not taking away from that. All I'm saying is, for his continued success, I believe, and credibility in the sport, whether it be YouTube boxing or boxing as a sport in general, he needs to fight someone that has experience and the ability to take it past round 3. That's just the fact of the matter.
Yeah, I fully agree.
That's just the fact of the fucking matter. Does that make Jake Paul not a good fighter? Absolutely not. But as long as he's able to walk in the ring and demolish a scrub, to the people who truly look at boxing as a sport, that is gonna constantly get them to diminish his actual capability in the ring. And that's all I'm saying. And that's where I'll leave it.
No, yeah, I agree with you fully.